Hi, I'm Paige, and in this video I'm going to show you how to make this little project bag that turns into a project bowl. Unzip it, open it up, pop the sides out, and you have a bowl where you can work on knitting or any of the craft hobbies that you enjoy. And then when you're done working, simply zip it up and go on your way. Let's jump right into the tutorial so you can see how this is made. Place one of your fat quarters face down and then smooth the piece of batting over the fabric so there's no bumps. And then place your next fat quarter, smooth that, and mark a guideline. I'm just putting a couple pins to hold my layers together so it's easier to work with. And now I'm going to take a walking foot, place it on the machine, and use a guide bar. Stitch your first line and then use that as a guide with this little guide bar aligned with that stitch line, and just repeat this step over and over to create a grid. So here's just a regular box grid, and then I'm going to trim all of the uneven edges. Once I've trimmed everything, then I went ahead and squared my piece and cut it to size to be 16.5 by 20. I'll mark a line of 4 inches off the side that's 16.5 inches. And then I'll mark that line at these measurements that are written on the screen. I'll connect that mark down to the edge and use those guidelines to cut out this rectangle piece. After this piece is removed, then we're going to take a triangle off of the side. So just cut that square edge in half to look kind of like fangs, and do the same thing to the other side. Here I just used my offcuts. Now we're going to do this optional zipper adjustment. So I have a 22-inch zipper and a scrap zipper of the same color. So with the scrap zipper, I took off the bottom stop and slid off the slider, and then I took the top stops off of the longer zipper so I could get the slider back onto this to make it a double-headed zipper essentially. Just like that. I will take the top stops and the zipper and dispose of that, and then put the bottom stop back on and clamp it with needle nose pliers, and there it is. We have a double-ended zipper. To get these stops off, I used an awl and those needle nose pliers to protect my fingers so I didn't nick them. Now we'll mark the center of the bag and the zipper and begin pinning those pieces together. So the zipper is going to be pinned to the side that you want facing out, all the way along the longest side that kind of looks like a boat. And we'll do the same thing to the other side, pin it and stitch it. And it'll look like this. And now we're going to finish this raw edge by putting a bias binding in there and top stitching. To do that, we'll take some fabric and make our own bias binding. I chose to do a 1-inch bias strip, but you can do 1.25 inches or 1.5 inches, because the larger it is, the easier it is to work with. But I wanted it to be skinny, so I did 1 inch. I'll place that right sides on the opposite side of the zipper and stitch 1/4 of an inch away from the edge. After you're done with that, it'll look like this. Now you can fold it once and fold it over to the other side to bind that raw edge and then pin it in place. I pinned the whole way. It'll look like this. And then you're going to stitch right on that edge. When that has been bound, now you're going to fold it over and top stitch. That'll create a nice look and also keep that bias binding out of the way. All right, should look like this when you zip it up. Now we're going to make our handle. So I'm going to cut a strip that's 2.5 inches wide, and then I'll take a piece of my scrap quilted fabric and use that in the handle. So we'll cut those to be 8 inches long and stitch around the perimeter, leaving one section open. I did a 1/2 inch seam allowance on this. And I used that quilted piece to give it a little bit of structure. Here you can grade your seams and then reduce the bulk from the corner by just cutting that away. It'll look like this, and then we'll turn it right side out. First get it turned and then use a point turner to get the corners nice and sharp. Press, and to close that opening, we're going to be top stitching 1/8 of an inch away from the edge all the way around. Now we'll get 2 pieces and cut them 2.5 inches by 3 inches, and then fold it into 4ths and press. Stitch on each side, and those are the makings of our zipper tabs. I pressed my bag into shape just to visualize where I wanted the handle. You can adjust this to your liking of how much you want it to push up. I chose to mark the center and 3 inches away from each side. I thought that gave a nice bend to the handle. So now with the bag inside out, we're going to close up that seam, but before we do, we need to put our zipper tabs in. So fold them in half, place them, and baste them. Then open your zipper fully and pin this seam into place. I found that sewing this seam from the center to the outside was the most effective method. Now that that's all stitched, I'm going to pop it right sides out just to double check that everything is folded how I want it to be. And once I've confirmed everything, I'm going to put bias binding on those raw seams as well. For this one, I did 1.5 inches because it's a bit of a bulkier seam. So right sides on the underside and stitch across. On each side, before stitching, fold in a little bit, and then you're going to be able to wrap it, pin it, and stitch it to create a nice bias bound edge. I found that sewing this by hand was easier than trying to get it through a machine, and it looked neater anyway. So everything is looking really nice. You can turn the bag right sides out, and it looks pretty much finished, but I wanted to add little side tabs. So I measured what size I needed. The piece that I'm cutting out is 4 by 9 to create a 3 by 8 rectangle after it's been stitched. You need 4 pieces total. I did 2 different fabrics for fun contrast. I placed my tag and then stitched around, leaving an opening, trimmed the corners and turned it right side out. Use a point turner to pop your corners nice and sharp. Press and stitch around the perimeter. And they'll go in like that. So turning it inside out, I pinned it in place, getting it nice and aligned where I wanted it to be, and then hand stitched the sides and the bottom. This gives you a lot of control and also makes it to where your stitches don't show on the outside. Do the same thing to the other side. And then you can turn it right side out for a final time because it's done. This bag kind of creates a bowl, like a craft bowl. And then when you're ready to close it up, it turns into a bag. Super cool sewing origami.
Isn't it so cute? I picked my daughter's favorite color and made this for her 11th birthday because she's become quite a knitter. So she needed her own little project bag. If you like this tutorial, you can click the thumbs up to let me know, leave a comment, and you can subscribe to my channel and click the bell notification next to it to be notified anytime that I post a video. Until next time, go get creative and make a project bag that you love. Bye.